Hey y'all, it's life coach and licensed therapist Robin May. And I only give that title. Normally when I'm doing these videos, I don't go into the fancy titles, but I only give it because we have some new friends. Welcome to all of our new friends hanging with us on Instagram who may not know what I do professionally. And it's super important that you know that because of the topic we're going to be talking about all month. Do you know what this month is? Okay, I had to sing the song, y'all. Random songs come into my head all the time, and I had to sing it because this is Mental Health Awareness Month. Now, I have confessed, y'all, that I have a little bit of attention deficit. So I'm about to share with y'all a story that has nothing to do with anything. And like I tell my friends and I tell my husband, just listen, because I may go down the street and around the corner, but I always bring it back. So I was singing that song, and I thought about when I was in college, I was in the gospel choir. And I sang tenor. I sang tenor. And they would always keep me in the front row. Not because I could hold a tune, as you just saw, but because I would give so much drama that they wanted me. That they want to be on the front row. That has nothing to do with anything. We are here this month, all month. We're going to be talking about mental health awareness. I do have to give a disclaimer. The work that we're doing, the things that I talk about, all of this on social media, y'all, this is not therapy. If you need a therapist, hang out with me this month because I'm going to even talk to you about how to find a therapist. And then inevitably, when we have these conversations, y'all end up in my DM asking me about us working together personally. Now, while my clinical caseload is just about full, I do have some openings in my coaching practice. Now, my therapy practice and my coaching company is two totally separate things. I keep those separate. Counseling and coaching are different. I like to call them cousins, but they are different. So if you're interested in working with me, make sure you click the link in my bio or look right above or below this video if you're watching on Facebook, and you can learn more about us working together, particularly through my coaching practice. All right. Also, I am rocking the Trust Y'all Want Me in Therapy tee. All of our shirts are still available to you for free shipping. And so we, again, with these shirts are normalizing therapy. So make sure you click the link to grab your tee. And I want you to wear it at some point this month and let me know that you too are going to normalize therapy. All right. So this entire month, I'm going to be answering frequently asked questions each week right here on Instagram. And if you're watching this on Facebook. Plus, every day I'm going to be giving you tips and strategies. And all month, I'm going to be inviting some of my therapy friends to come on and chat with us. Now, when we talk about these frequently asked questions, there are some specific things we're going to be answering. But if you have a question, make sure you post it in the comments, and I'm going to try to get around to it. All right. But we're going to be talking about the difference between mental health and mental illness. What do we mean when we use those terms? We're going to talk about why therapy may not have worked for you last time, but why I want you to try again. Because I know some of you are like, Robin, I went to therapy and it didn't work. I want you to try again. Also, we're going to be talking about the difference between a life coach and a licensed therapist and whether or not you need a coach or a therapist. Now, hint, hint. I'm going to go ahead and get ahead of myself. I think at some point in all of our lives, we need a coach. And at some point in all of our lives, we need a therapist. Also, like I said, we're going to be talking about where you can find a therapist. If you're like, okay, Robin, enough. I hear you. I'm going to get me a therapist. I'm going to give you some strategies on finding a therapist, because I like to tell people finding a therapist that works for you is like finding a significant other. So I'm going to try to help you with that. And then we're also going to tackle a conversation that can be a little bit sensitive because you might know that somebody in your life really needs a therapist and they are resistant to it. I'm going to try to give you some strategies to broach that topic that could hopefully help bring their defenses down just a little bit. Okay. Now, all of that is going on this month. So make sure that you are following and that you're inviting your family and friends to come and hang out with us on Instagram or on Facebook. All right. So today we are getting into the conversation about what is the difference between mental health and mental illness. Are those terms interchangeable, or why do we sometimes talk about mental health versus mental illness? I want to kind of dive into that today. Now, I know that I'm going to have some clinicians that are watching this video, and I'm going to tell you, therapists are hard on other therapists. And so let me go ahead and tell my clinicians, my fellow colleagues, I am talking at a very high level. This is high level. I am not giving a counseling one-on-one session, all right? So first of all, I'm not counseling. Let's be clear, because I just told y'all this isn't therapy, but this is very high level. Okay, so when we talk about the term mental illness, I'm going to tell you that personally, I don't even like using the term mental illness, because I have found that my clients still feel a stigma with the term. And so I don't necessarily like using the term, but we'll get into that in just a minute. When we use the term mental health, when you hear a clinician or even a doctor or maybe a psychiatrist, when you hear somebody using the term mental health, what we basically mean is that we want you to prioritize and be intentional about paying attention to your cognitive and your emotional development, your cognitive and your emotional well-being. Cognitive is just the way you think. And of course, your emotions are what you are feeling. So mental health is just you being intentional about your cognitive and your emotional well-being. It's just like somebody saying, take care of your physical health. I want you to think about your self-care when we talk about mental health. Self-care and soul care, because I believe self-care and soul care are two different things that we both need to do, or that we need to do both. And I want you to make sure that you're following me this entire month, because I am going to be helping you build a soul care box. I cannot wait for that. So again, when you're thinking about mental health, I just want you to focus on your self-care and your soul care. We want you to focus on prioritizing the way you think and prioritizing and paying attention to how you feel, because all of that continues to develop your entire well-being. I tell people all the time that we are mind, body, and spirit. And so you have to make sure that you're nurturing all three. If one of them is off, you're going to be wobbling. You remember back in the day when a chair would be wobbly? I don't know about you, but my mom would take a piece. My mom is going to watch this video and she's going to say, Robin, don't be telling people that. But my mom used to take a piece of foil and she would fold it up and she would stick it up under the leg that was wobbly. She would bootleg it a little bit so it wouldn't wobble anymore. But I don't want us to bootleg our well-being. And so when you're talking about your mental health, it's just prioritizing your self-care and your soul care. When we talk about mental illness, that's often talking about a mental disorder, right? And that often speaks to a wide range of diagnoses. When you talk about mental illness, that is an umbrella for different things that someone can be diagnosed with. Some of the things that can come under that umbrella could be depression, it could be anxiety, it could be schizophrenia. These are all diagnoses that could be under the umbrella of mental illness. And remember, I said earlier, I don't necessarily like to use that term because it still can be disarming, or it can be not disarming, it can be off-putting to people, but that is just an umbrella for different diagnoses. Again, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, maybe an eating disorder, maybe a substance or addictive disorder or behaviors. And so all of that comes under that umbrella. And when you go see a therapist, when you go see a social worker, when you see a psychiatrist or a psychologist, we are often listening for symptoms. We're listening to you tell us symptoms, and it's like we're putting pieces of a puzzle together to determine what the diagnosis is. And how do we determine a diagnosis? Well, we all have what we call our counseling or therapy Bible, and it is the DSM, and we're on the 5th edition, so the DSM-5. Now, DSM stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. So what we're doing is we're listening to these symptoms, and if we've done this job for a long time, we can hear different symptoms and we say, those symptoms are congruent with this diagnosis. Okay, So again, all of that is high level. Mental health is just making sure you're prioritizing and being intentional about your cognitive and your emotional well-being. When you talk about mental illness, it is a disorder that is an umbrella, and many things could fall under that umbrella. But I like to normalize it even more, because when we talk about depression, for you to be diagnosed, it is with maybe major depressive disorder. And so you might be saying, well, because I was sad, does that mean I have major depressive disorder? No, because remember, we're listening for symptoms and we use the DSM, and the DSM gives us all of these symptoms that fall, for example, under depression. And you have to hit a certain number of criteria for us to be able to say, okay, this is major depression. It is not just sadness. It has to be sadness combined with tearfulness, combined with isolation, combined with maybe a lack of attention or a lack of focus over a certain period of time. So why do I like to normalize that? Because while you may not be officially diagnosed with major depression, we've all experienced sadness. And so I like to tell people that all of us are on the spectrum of something. Now, you just may be courageous enough to go somewhere and get some support with it, but all of us are on the spectrum of something. Whether or not we hit enough criteria to be diagnosed with major depression, or whether or not we hit enough criteria to be diagnosed with anxiety, we all are on the spectrum of something, and we all need the support to journey through life. All right. So when we talk about mental health and we're saying this is Mental Health Awareness Month, we want you to be aware of your cognitive and your emotional well-being. Do you have a mental illness? Remember, I don't necessarily like that term, but if you are struggling and if you're finding yourself dealing with things that are impacting your everyday functioning, impacting how you show up, people around you are starting to notice, then yes, I want you to seek support. And throughout this month, I'm going to be sharing with you ways that you can find a therapist that works for you. And remember, if you feel like you are in a very, very desperate place, let someone know. You do not have to do life alone. All right, guys, make sure you are sticking with us. We are talking about all things mental health this entire month, and I'm excited to share a little bit of knowledge with you that can hopefully get you on the right page. Remember, we all need to prioritize our mental health. All right, I'll talk to y'all later.